Alright, YouTube, so I'm about to take the massive undertaking of explaining the history and the origins of Christmas. Now, first and foremost, if you are a Christian that will probably not like this video because you don't want the truth said about your holiday, I would heavily advise you to leave right now, because you're probably going to be the same person to say I'm making stuff up, I'm lying, I don't know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. I've been studying this for about 3.5 years now. I think I know what I'm talking about. Alas, it's Christmas season and the kooky Christians are rallying up in a strangely odd, triumphant ecstasy, saying there's a war on their holiday being perpetuated by those immoral fags and crazy communist, Marxist liberals, because, happy holidays is such a bad term. Anyways, with that being said, I want to first start off by saying, no. Jesus is not the reason for the season. Most historians and most biblical scholars both agree, even the most Christian of them all agree that it's likely that Jesus was born in August, or they've narrowed it down to August. Jury is still out on the exact date of Jesus' birth, which, we will never know, because we don't even have a correct year, because Matthew and Luke fucking disagree on that. Even in the Bible, it says, at the time of his birth, the animals were out and about, and this would not be the case in Israel in these months. Now, even though Israel is a largely desert area, you must have to remember that even if it is a desert, in these months, in that region, it does get very cold, temperatures 30s to 40s. You're not really going to see a lot of livestock out at that point in time. Now, the reason Christmas is on the date that it is, this would have never happened had Christianity spread into Europe, because people have been celebrating this time period long before Christmas. This isn't a new made-up thing. So, this was during the time where the pagans were kind of losing traction in Europe, and the Christians were gaining a large amount of support in Europe. So it was around that cusp of coexistence, and I know coexistence sounds like they live peacefully. I should probably say it was more both groups could live by each other. They didn't tolerate each other's beliefs, but it was primarily behind closed doors where they would talk smack about one another's beliefs. Down in Greece, they were celebrating Zeus's birth at this time. They believed he was born on the winter solstice. Around the 25th, they celebrated the birth of Hercules with the festival of Linnea. Now, in the more Germanic area of Europe, they were celebrating Yule, where they celebrated Odin and, the wild hunt. The Anglo-Saxons had their tradition too, but I'm not going to pronounce the god's name, because I really don't know how to. I know it's like Rodintha or something like that, but I'm not really too sure. The Christians were really wanting to get a foothold in the continent of Europe. Now, some Christians understand that this is an authentically Christian holiday and they don't celebrate it. Others understand that his birthday isn't in December, but they say, oh, the Christians felt left out and they just wanted to have their festival in that area too at the same time. I also heard one where they talked about how it was just cold outside and everybody was getting depressed and they just wanted the Christians to have a good time around this area, so the higher ups in the religion in that area concocted this holiday. This isn't the case. What the Christians wanted in Europe was political edge, political weight. They wanted their say to be heavier than the pagans in the region. So what they would do, and keep in mind here, I've said this before, this was at a time where the Roman Empire had died. However, the mindset of the Roman Empire is still prevalent within the Christian movement today, because it was a state religion of Rome at one point. So they wanted more power, and the only way they did this was the same way the Romans would try to gain political power in their time when they were still into the Hellenic pantheon. They would go to other tribes in Gaul or in more Eastern Europe and say, oh, well, our gods are similar to yours. Just, convert to our religion. Or they'll just chalk it up to linguistic differences and say, well, hey, our gods are different, but, they're just named differently, so we pretty much believe in the same thing. Sometimes this was true, but most of the times this was not the case. They just said this because I guess it was, in a sense, a false sense of friendship. So the Christians, they did the same thing. They put their holiday around, they purposely did this. They put the holiday around the same time as Yule or Linnea, and they would say, hey, your traditions are basically the same as ours, just convert to Christianity. And it worked, because even though, how could they believe such a thing? They have contrasting views, contrasting festivals. They believe in one god, whereas the pagans believed in a pantheon. Remember, we're talking about the mid-Iron Age, maybe even the early to mid-Iron Age, on that cusp. So you have to remember, most people didn't know much beyond their daily life, were probably illiterate, so they could basically, the clergymen could probably lie right to their face about what the Bible is saying. And this is why it worked. It relied on people's uneducated status, illiteracy, in order to gain a larger foothold in Europe. And at this point, it worked flawlessly. So then this happens, and most of Europe, they've conquered Germania, they've conquered most of Eastern Europe with their religion. The last thing they need to conquer is those nasty, horrible Norse pagans up in Scandinavia. And I have a video on this, but I will reiterate it one last time. The term hell is not of Jewish or Hebrew origin. The term hell is a Scandinavian linguistic word. Helsinki in Finland, like I said before, would be a great example. The term the Norse pagans used was spelled H-E-L, just with one L. And this was a place during the winter solstice that they believed the sun physically sat atop of in northern Scandinavia. What they believed after that happened after the sun had set, they believed in this region of hell that the spirits of their deceased ancestors would kind of reanimate and come back to life for this brief amount of time. And they would kind of wander around in the woods, and sort of a festive type deal, but not quite. Now, it was never originally, they never thought this place to be a place of suffering or a place of torture or a place where wrongdoers went. They just saw it as everybody that died comes back in spirit form and kind of hangs out for a couple hours. Now, like I said, Roman mindset need the political advantage. They went into Scandinavia, put an extra L on the word hell, and then used it for the place that Satan resides over. And said, oh no, they're going to a terrible place. This is a place of torture. This is a place where people who don't believe in our God go. You have to turn to Christianity now. And once again, relying on heavy illiteracy and etc., the Norse, being gullible, agreed and converted in mass numbers. Now, some were suspicious, and obviously a lot of witch doctors weren't falling for it, because most of these mages and stuff, they would have been the heavy illiterate type, or heavy literate type. Even the nobles in the medieval era, most places of power, it was usually just males who held large amounts of land. They were illiterate, they were no more educated than the common folk and the peasants in the village. So it worked flawlessly. So to summarize, Christmas is not a Christian holiday. It is simply pantheistic, pagan winter solstice celebrations, and if even they're wrong, or not wrong, but if you want to get down to the meat of it, the winter solstice is the reason for the season. And that's about it, YouTube. Peace out. If you enjoyed this video, I also have an Origins of Halloween. I know it's a little out of season. You can check out my other videos if you enjoyed this one. I do many videos like this. Peace out. Subscribe.